showing Mike something, sorry. Okay. Father, tonight we pause to remember our heritage. Help us to have the courage to be visionary as those who founded our country were. We give you gratitude for all the employees that work in our city, and we especially want to remember the police department this evening as they continue in the process of grieving and concern for their department members. We also are thankful for those who are willing to step up and serve on all of our many boards and commissions. We thank you that Warsaw has a long tradition of being involved in the community, and we thank you for each member that makes good government possible. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Diane.
So how is everybody down there?
We're good.
Well, let the minutes reflect. I believe Cindy will not be here tonight. She called and leave it at that. Jack and Jeff are both absent as well, so there's 4 here. We do have a quorum. Any action we take, though, tonight will require all 4 votes. So, all right, so we'll test that immediately with the approval of the minutes from February 3rd.
Having reviewed the minutes, I don't see any corrections, so I'll make a motion that we approve them as submitted.
I'll second it.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, thank you. And welcome to our visitors tonight. Alan, it's good to see you. In fact, I will call you to the podium to make your report, your 2020 KEDCO update.
Good evening. I was just over in Mona Lake. They had 3 of their 5 members, so I don't know, must be something important happening this evening. But I thought it'd be important before we get too far into the year to share a real high-level overview of our plan for this year, and to make sure, with the partnership we have with the city, again, that we're meeting your needs, expectations, and help with any questions. So really want to kind of key in on a few things, and then if you'd like to talk more in detail, then again, happy to help with questions or talk in more detail. So in 2019, we rolled out a new mission, right, for KEDCO, which is to convene, build, and show the community's economic growth resources. It's a different mission than maybe our counterparts in other communities around Indiana, but something that really speaks to how we look at our business at the nonprofits, KEDCO, as really helping to listen to what are the needs in the community, how do we bring people together and solve problems. And remember me saying before once, we'll be known for the problem we solve, right? And so last year, if you think about 2019, it was really about the first of those 3 areas, the convene pillar, which is bringing people together and building partnerships, building collaborations. In 2019, we launched our agribusiness roundtable. We joined Agrinovus Indiana, still the only county, only community in the state that's joined that organization. We started a medical device roundtable to bring people together from the orthopedic sector. Entrepreneurship roundtable, we call that now the circuit, to create some community among entrepreneurs in the area. And so again, 2019 was really about bringing people together. And for us, it's how we begin to understand, the voice of the customer. How can we help build companies, build communities around Kosciuszko County? And so this year is really focused on the build function of building our capacity. Most EDCs around the state, you're going to find maybe 2 or 3 people. We now have a team of 8 of us with all very different skill sets, backgrounds, who can all contribute toward a really broad menu of services we can offer companies and communities. We again still have our entrepreneurship initiative, agribusiness, medical device initiative. We are, though, also launching a talent initiative. And so about a week ago, we had a news release. Danielle Rich is on board as our point of contact to help companies attract and retain talent. And so we have some fantastic partners in the region, around the state, that we can connect companies to. But we want to provide a single point of contact so that companies we work with can help, again, attract and retain talent. If it's building our talent pipeline, either entry-level people coming out of school, out of high school, college, if it's helping with building a pipeline of people who would consider moving to our area, if it's helping once you have people under consideration with community tours, or helping with what we call our dual career initiative with trailing spouses or partners who, one person has a great opportunity here, to give that other person involved the confidence that they can find an opportunity here as well. And so even to the point of, we just launched we call it a newcomers kind of group called Outside the Fishbowl, for newcomers at heart, people that have moved here at some point from somewhere else. Could be they moved here a month ago, a year ago, 20 years ago, but to create a place where people who are not from here can get together and connect with each other. Some OrthoWorks research showed that about 60% of our residents are not from here, which I feel is very high for our community, for a rural community, and yet it provides such a great opportunity if people even are here for a specific period of time to make sure they become welcomed, to become part of the community, and make it very hard to leave, right? Kind of like Hotel California. We want them to stay and be part of what's here and see that their future is here in Kosciuszko County. And so that's really what we're doing around the build function, is building that kind of capacity. And then that will then lead us into the show piece of it. It's helping to show and tell our story. If it's using the Clearly Kosciuszko brand that the Lilly Center for Lakes and Streams has put together, if it's us welcoming guests here, we actually hosted an ag tech company from Canada last week for a visit, helped them make some connections that could lead to some business opportunities, could lead them to even have a place, a location here. Doing the same, working with our partners at OrthoWorks, again, helping to make sure if people want to start and grow companies in these sectors, they do so here. That's going to take us, it's retail politics, it's making direct connections and helping to bring people here as we go out and really build our, or help tell our story. And so we all have a role to play. If we're successful with our mission, we will be, the convene, build, and show means something to each of us. When someone asks what it's like to work here, to live here, to visit here, to work with KEDCO specifically, you'll have a story to share of, this is how KEDCO brought together some people or brought together a community, how we helped work on an issue or an opportunity, how we solved a problem, and here's the story we can share about it. And so that's what's really exciting, is that we're creating those stories, and that we're working, like I say, with the city, the towns around, and with the county as well, and seeing some traction from our efforts, and with plenty to come. So our objective this year is to build a 24-month pipeline of projects that are both community development projects, as well as businesses starting and expanding, and we're well on our way. So again, I want to provide a high-level overview, but I'm happy to go into more detail, and I do appreciate the partnership with the council, with the city, as we've undertaken this new approach.
Alan, you had mentioned a branding initiative, the Clearly Kosciuszko, and I know during the strategic plan that had come up. I think, Mike, you had said something about it, and we had some good discussion about it. Can you kind of update the council on the potential there and what your thoughts are on that?
Certainly. So I see Clearly Kosciuszko as kind of our pure Michigan, right? Something where we can begin to, tell our story more broadly about what it's like to live here, to work here, to be part of the community. But again, we're going to have to build some very, I think, authentic stories. And so kind of aside from KEDCO as a KLA project, I'm working on exploring, what's that look like? Who's involved in helping to use that Clearly Kosciuszko brand? How are we going to use it? Even, talking to people who've moved here, how would they want to hear from us if we're helping to tell our story? So I'm excited about that opportunity ahead. I think, again, I want to commend the Lilly Center for the work they've taken and put into that effort. But again, I think it's up to us then to really utilize that, the Clearly Kosciuszko brand, and again, help to tell our story more broadly. And even, with the example of Pure Michigan, I mean, my counterparts in Michigan use that on their email signatures. I mean, it's something that's so ingrained in what they do that it's part of everything, really, even their economic development efforts. And, as someone who moved to the area, about a year ago, year and a half, I just came from Fort Wayne, so it wasn't that far away. I didn't have any concerns about coming to the area, but I certainly didn't appreciate all that's here. And that's, again, I mean, we're all humble Hoosiers. We don't like to brag up what we have, but I mean, again, it's up to us as leaders in the community, I think, to talk up what we have. And if people ask, if people say they moved here, we don't want to say, well, why'd you do that? Or, Or, if people ask what's there to do in the wintertime, like, let's talk up what there is to do in the wintertime. Again, we're the champions. I think we have the opportunity to use that Clearly Kaskaskia to really empower other people to tell their story as well.
One other thing, as long as we've got you here and we've got the time, I know you and I and Jeremy have been looking at potentially working low-interest loan, zero-interest loan as an economic incentive. Can you talk just a little bit about how that tool would be separate and what that tool might be really specific for?
So we spoke, 2 weeks ago about what if we had this framework of a revolving loan fund, and this is utilizing, easiest path would be to utilize edit dollars and say, if we have companies that are looking to start or grow here, expand here, with very specific guidelines as far as creating, high-wage jobs in our key sectors, if we were to look at, joining the state of Indiana and offering incentives to encourage those companies, that we could utilize a loan program as far as a way to help identify very specific, let's say, expenses or investments related to the project, reimbursement for training costs, for example, and utilize the loan dollars to be able to support that cost and then create a clawback that a company would have to repay those dollars. And we could run all that through KEDCO, and on a case-by-case basis, bring proposals or recommendations to council. But again, the idea that we would be able to put together an agreement for a project, say for this company, we are going to dedicate X dollars. It's a loan. Perhaps there's some language that some or all of it could be forgiven if they meet certain targets, but otherwise it becomes a loan to be repaid, and we'd have security in place to help ensure that. We already have a revolving loan fund at KEDCO. Right now it's used more toward $10,000 or $50,000 kind of loans to help earlier stage kind of startups. So this would be a way to deploy that a little bit differently, again, as an incentive where there's something specific we can help to support for a high growth company that we want to see come here. But we also can't write a blank check. And maybe one of the other tools on our toolbox, like an abatement, just wouldn't do a whole lot because they don't have a lot of property to incentivize.
Okay. I know we talked about it last time, and I just wanted to kind of continue the conversation, see if y'all had any questions, or, again, I think that type of tool would be brought to you on a case-by-case basis, would be the other thing to consider about that. So. All right, Alan, thank you.
This fishbowl, from outside the fishbowl organization you were talking about, kind of made my ears perk up. Is that an organization that exists now, or is it just a concept?
Oh, it's an event that KEDCO is putting together. We actually had the first one last night. Had about 20 people together. Folks who moved in 6 months ago, folks that moved in 30 years ago. But again, a way to build some community. And that's open to the public. We just, again, we want to make sure that we have some kind of, venue where people can come together and not much of a program. We had 5 questions with Matthew Graham from Bowen Center. How did he get here? What's his vision for the community? How is he involved? Who's helped him on his journey? And so it's just great to hear from someone he did just move here within the last 2 years, but to be able to then connect other people who've moved here at different times from throughout the county.
Interesting. Thanks.
Kind of a welcome wagon for, yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Lynn, you've included the January fund report.
I did.
And any comments or questions for that first month of activity? Hearing none, you also have included the fourth quarter franchise fee from Comcast. And looks like that fourth quarter yielded about $12,626.84.
Yep, it's just down a smidge it's up a smidge from last year at the same time, so.
All right, any questions? Okay, so no unfinished business. We'll jump into new business. What we're going to do is, in these first 2 items, is essentially reestablish both the CCD rate in item 1 and the fire equipment rate in item number 2. We did this in 2018, and I know there seemed to be a little bit of misinformation at the time. So I wanted to kind of start with the discussion of why this is necessary. The enabling legislation on these two rates specifies that you can, in the CCD, for example, I think it's up to a nickel is the highest that you can go. And there's language written in that statute that if your assessed value goes up, you don't automatically get that increase. It actually goes down, and over time, that nickel erodes. And Josh called and we talked a little today. So I went back and looked at the CCD rate. I had 1782 notices all the way back to 2016. So it was 4.8 cents in 2016. It dropped down to 4.6 cents in 2017. And then in 2018, it dropped down to 4 cents. So it essentially dropped a dime. And Lynn and I can't remember, we don't remember with us being in office when that had been readjusted before. But, you know, in 2016, it was at 4.8 cents, so it couldn't have dropped a whole lot. But the bottom line is in 2018, that penny was costing us a lot. And we went through and reestablished the rate for 29 back up to a nickel. And similarly with the fire territory, that rate is at 3.3 cents. And in 2016, it was 3.2. 2017, it was 3.1. Actually, in 2018, it stayed the same. But both of those rates were reestablished back up to their maximums just in 2018, paid 2019. So we went back up to a nickel and 3.3 cents. So with the assessed valuation increase that we had last year, $151 million, we've dropped from that nickel last year down to 4.4 cents just in 1 year. And if we reestablish that rate, that's worth about $62,000. So we are able to go back up to that maximum rate. But the way the legislation reads, we have to, as a council, do this. We have to establish this, reestablish this. And likewise with the fire territory rate, again, it didn't drop as much, but it went from 3.3 cents down to 3.1 cents. So both of these are written the same way, and the only way to get them back up to the maximum is for you to vote publicly to reestablish those rates. So that's what we're looking to do tonight in lieu of, again, having just done it in 2018, 2019. I did call Paige at Baker Tilly and just, you know, made sure, Lynn and I had talked about it today, and Lynn's on the ball getting this in front of you tonight, how important this is. Paige had actually told me last year they tried to create some legislation that would eliminate us having to do this, and that did not pass. So here we are again 2 years later. All we're trying to do is essentially reestablishing that rate back to what we are allowed. With that, Lynn, anything to add?
Sure. So there's a set of things we have to do, and tonight's the public hearing for it, so I'm sure the mayor will open the floor for the public comments here in a minute, but we have to have the public hearing, the ordinance has to have the 2 readings, then it has to go to remonstration, and for the CCD, there has to be at least 50 remonstrant before it would carry out further, and for the fire equipment, there only needs to be 10, and they have a 30-day remonstrance period after it's passed and advertised, and then we have to have all this into the DLGF by April 30th. So that's why I tried to get the ball rolling to get it started, because not only are we doing our CCD, but the fire equipment, and that also involves Wayne Township, and they only have a monthly meeting. So that's why we're doing it now. And the commissioner, the DLGF commissioner has assured us that he's still working on legislation that we wouldn't have to reestablish this year after year after year if necessary. But this year he didn't go for it because of the short session. So hopefully we won't have to do it after this year. I don't know. You never say never, but I think it's wise to do it just so we get all the pennies that we can. This year, our tax rate ended up being 1.1822. Had these funds both been established to their max, our rate would have been 1.1904. So it wouldn't have been that much greater, still would have been a lot less than it was for our last budget session.
So if you get on your 1782 notice and look at those funds specifically, you'll see the rates, and you'll see the amount of levy. Again, the CCD rate at 4.4 cents raised $472,453, and had it been at that nickel, it would have raised $534,449. So again, a difference of just about $62,000.
And the fire territories was about a $37,000 difference had we been to the full rate. That could have been a couple pieces of
So-
equipment they could always use.
We'll take a breath here and entertain questions.
It might behoove our audience, people that might be listening, to explain what that money is used for, how it's used.
Well, the CCD rate is used almost exclusively for stormwater projects. In the past, it had been stormwater, and I think the street department used some of that for roads, but with the vast amount of stormwater projects that have come upon us, we've pretty much shifted the utilization of those funds, of CCD funds, almost exclusively for stormwater projects. And then the fire equipment replacement fund is as it sounds, it's a separate fund with the fire territory, so.
I remember when we talked about this in 2018 and did it, that we talked about that we were going to need to review it every year. So thank you for staying on top of it and seeing that it had dropped again enough that it made it worth it to bring it back before us.
Well, I suspected it would drop because I knew that our AV was going to go up, so it was just something. And every year at budget time, I always put the max amount in there, but the GLGF cuts it because of the assessed value.
Yeah, they've got a
Anything-
formula,
Yep, they have a formula.
and that's just the way it is.
And I think one of the things we talked about is we knew our assessed value was going up and our miles were increasing of services that we needed to provide, that we needed to continue to find ways to fund those services, so.
So let's start with ordinance 2020-0301, and this would be reestablishing the CCD rate. And if you all have any questions before I open this to the public, and then after the public hearing, we can have a little bit more discussion. So if you have no questions, I'll open it to the public. Is there anyone that wishes to speak on behalf of ordinance 2020-0301, reestablishing the CCD rate to 5 cents on each $100 of assessed valuation? Mike, got anything to say? All right. All right, is there anyone to speak in opposition to 2020-0301? Okay. All right, then I will close the public hearing and throw it back to the council and ask for your pleasure.
Well, given the fact that we live in the land of lakes, we are surrounded by water, and we know what these 500-year rains can be. They come more than 500 years. So I would make a motion, this is important stuff, I'd make a motion that we pass ordinance 2020-0301.
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Cindy and Jerry. All right, any further discussion or questions? Josh, you understand? I know it's kind of a,
Yeah, you really helped clear it up for me earlier today, and
Okay.
then the explanation tonight helped as well.
all right, thanks. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, Lynn, and again, remind us of the process. Obviously, there will be a second hearing, and then you say there's a remonstrance period.
Yeah, so it looks like March 2nd will be our next meeting,
Okay,
and we'll have a second reading then, and then it has to be advertised, and then the 30-day remonstrance period starts. And we have to have all the information to the GLGF by the 30th of April.
okay. All right, so then let's move on with the same procedure for ordinance 2020-0302. And this would be just reestablishing the fire rate from .31 cents that it currently is at, back up to 3.1 cent up to 3.3 cents, which would improve revenue about $37,000. So again, same thing. Any questions? If not, we'll throw it back to the public for a public hearing. Ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak on behalf of ordinance 2020-0302. Okay. Anybody wishing to speak in opposition to 2020-0302? Okay, I will close the public hearing and throw it back to the council, again, for similar discussion and consideration.
Mayor, is the rate .0333 the maximum?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's one thing I forgot to say is on the CCD, their rates are different. They only get to collect like the .333 for the CCD. I don't think there's a specific thing for counties on the fire equipment because that's a territory and it's a special, different set of circumstances, so. Not that it matters now.
I think you got confused there. It's
Yeah,
No,
you said,
You
it's,
turn around.
if on the CCD for the county,
yes.
they
For the
can only.
county?
Yeah, for the on the county, and they can only collect the .333,
3.33, yeah, 3.33 cents.
the
Okay.
3 cents,
3.33
yeah, the 3 and a third
Okay.
cents.
Yeah.
Whereas the city, we can get the nickel.
I see. I see. So since part of the fire territory is in the county, we're limited to the,
The fire territories have just I think they can all just go
It's
up
got a
to,
different funding formula.
gotcha.
the 3 and a third cent.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were getting as much as we could for the good old fire territory.
I'm trying.
Hearing that, I would again step forward and make a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-03-02.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And let the minutes reflect on both that it was 5-0. So we will take this up again in March, and then, did you say the remonstrance period is a little different with this one?
The amount of remonstrators are different.
But the
It's
period's
only-
the same.
The period's the same, but they only need 10 remonstrators. And on the last time we didn't have any on either the CCD or the fire equipment, so.
Okay. All right, so stay tuned. All right.
It's a process.
Resolution 2020-0202, this is an additional appropriation from the redevelopment general, and I'll have our city planner, Jeremy, come up and present this.
Yes, you have a resolution for you to do an additional appropriation for redevelopment general, and I think $300,000 is the request. Initially, that money was put into the budget last year for the senior housing project, but because it did not get finalized until after this year, I'm requesting that we put that money into this year's budget. So it didn't get spent last year, so it went back into the redevelopment general, but in order to do that project this year, we need to reappropriate that fund so we can do the senior housing project. The redevelopment commission, along with our partner, going all the way back to the Stellar submittal, was to do a senior housing project on Market Street. We were committed as a city to participate in that project, both with land and then funds of up to $300,000, and then the Market Street Phase 2 project, which Phase 2 is done. We acquired some land about 3 or 4 years ago now that we're going to put into this development. And to give you an idea, so we're putting in the land and $300,000. The project right now is going to be around $9 million, so it'll be a $9 million building that'll be put on Market Street. So certainly, we're leveraging our funds for a long-term great project for affordable housing close to downtown, close walkability to parks, ability to walk to retail establishments, so really providing that connectivity for those residents in Warsaw that need that affordable housing, especially in the senior. So it's kind of one of the focal points of the Stellar was to an aging in place in our neighborhoods. So one of the focal points on that Market Street project was trying to provide a mixture of housing so that as we age, we're allowed to transition and stay in our neighborhood, and this is a great project to do that.
Jeremy, would you just take a second and explain how, at the beginning of the process, when they're applying for the rental housing tax credits, part of the application is for what the city is going to be contributing to this, and
The state has a large 10-page scoring document that they go through, and as they submit their project, they try to score points based on walkability. They get points for location to certain retail establishments like grocery stores. They get points depending on the type of housing, based on location of educational facilities, so the ability to have access to education. That's more towards the family housing, not so much obviously the senior. But all the whole document just has all these different scores, and that's how the state ranks and bases their awards on those scores. So if you had 50 projects submitted within a year, and they have funds to do 5 projects, those top 5 scoring projects would get awarded funds. One of the ways you score points is by the community contributing towards the project. Our contribution obviously came in a lot of different forms. The Market Street improvements that we did counted towards our contribution. The land that we had acquired 3 or 4 years when we were doing the Stellar application, we had acquired property, that counts towards it. And then the funds that we're giving as a redevelopment commission counted towards them scoring points in that category. And there's a lot of different categories. Number of units, the type of units, like I said, walkability, location to parks, location to schools, location to retail, grocery stores. So they really focus on who they're providing service to and making sure that we're providing an atmosphere for those people that are in that housing to be successful.
Will the rent in these houses, or in these units, be based on income?
Yes.
Okay.
And income
So
and
it's part of
age, because this is a senior housing, I believe you have to be 55 or older.
and that's part of the rental housing tax credit process.
That's what I wondered. Yeah.
I think there's certain levels too, I believe.
Yes. Yes, it's not all just one level either. I believe that it goes up to 60% of AMI,
Okay.
so 60% of the average median income would qualify to and down. So it's like and they have different programs set up. So it's a percentage as you go down. So it's so much of 60%, so much of 40, 50, 30.
Mm-hmm. I think I remember seeing a chart originally with the
Yeah,
application it
and-
had on to do with number of residents and income and.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that is most important is this is not free housing. They pay rent like everybody else.
Jeremy, how many units are going to be there?
The goal is 72 units.
72. So our part of this, the property and the, I'll call it seed money for lack of a better term, once this thing gets up and running, we'll put this property back on the tax rolls then.
Yes.
And the city
Yeah, so
will-
we've had a defunct gas station there
Right.
since I've been here, so that's 15 plus years. 2 houses that have been used in and out. There was a business on the lots that we had purchased that had left, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Are those the houses on Center Street?
Yeah, well, the house on, or the properties on Market Street had a therapy company that was in there. And it had left sometime before.
Okay.
The property had changed hands. Habitat had taken control of the property. When we were putting the Stellar application together, we had talked to Habitat about purchasing that property from them to do the larger senior affordable housing project rather than only having 3 or 4 homes there. We wanted to do kind of a higher density project along there.
We took the first steps in Plan Commission to vacate the alley and get that lot ready to use, so that the building footprint is ready now.
Yeah, I think there's 11 lots total or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, there's 5 lots on the south side, and I think 6 on the north side.
Okay, well, again, I appreciate the work Jeremy's done, and it's a important process going through everything we've done to make this happen, and I can assure all of us that that type of housing is certainly in demand and in need, and I think it makes sense to certainly continue on with this. Again, going back to Stellar, we identified this as one of our key projects, and the majority of those projects are seeing their way through without Stellar, and pretty good testimony to the planning that we did at the time and how important this was. And I know you've all been a big part of that with Market Street and every other project that we've done. And again, I appreciate what you've done, Jeremy, to get us to this point. Additional appropriation, this is a resolution. Should you pass it, I believe DLGF has to approve it.
They do. So my suggestion is, first of all, this is the public hearing again
Okay,
for this. And then we could still do a second reading because we can't really send in for the additional appropriation until we have the annual report done, and we don't have the annual report quite done yet. Maybe sometime in the next week or so. We just wanted to get this ready to go, so when that was filed, then we could send this off.
all right, any further questions of Jeremy? All right, then I will open the public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak on behalf of Resolution 2020-0202, which is a additional appropriation, $300,000 to purchase property?
From the redevelopment general fund.
Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the additional appropriation? Okay, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll ask for your consideration of 2020-0202, and as Lynn said, that will have to come back for a final reading in 2 weeks.
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2020-0202.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hang on just a sec. Okay, very good. All right, hearing no further discussion, having my question answered, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, thank you. We'll see you in 2 weeks on that one as well. All right, any other matters come before the council? Any comments from the visitors?
It's always nice to be here.
Hey, it's always good to have you, Dan. All right. All right, well, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Thank you. Do we have anything to sign? No, nothing to sign. Cindy, thank you.
Assuming this will go through second reading,
Well,
it's appropriated. That money,
yeah, I got it. Whatever.
I got a couple of lines about getting that forward.
Okay,
If you want me to forward it to you before.
that'd be great. That's good, just in case there's anything I need to brush up on.
Okay, that way I don't put you.
I never really sound like I'm supposed to do it.